Okay, so
What?
welcome everybody to the February 2025 monthly meeting for United Spinal Association Northeast Ohio chapter. Tonight we are joined by Dr. Rob Hoey. He's going to be talking about the genital nerve stimulation bowel study that is going on at Metro Health. I believe this is our third update on that study. So we do have previous replays on YouTube
You
if
put that receipt on the
you see it.
refrigerator thing, or you just leave it?
Otherwise, we will be hearing what has been going on in the past year. It was February of last year that you last joined us. So we'll be hearing about what happened in the last year and seeking feedback and thoughts and what we think about data and stuff like that. So I will go ahead and turn it over to you, Dr. Hoey.
Thanks. Let me just share my screen real quick. Um, so I would like to talk to you guys about the study we have going on, but I don't want to throw a whole bunch of data at you like I did last time. So really, I just want to very briefly go over kind of what we're doing and then get your thoughts on it. And the big thing that I've learned for the last year has been that the people that come in to partake in the study, to participate, are probably the most important person in the room. Okay, we can read. I was thinking about it earlier. So if I spent 8 hours every single day for 10 years studying the literature and trying to figure out what's going on from a scientific point of view, um, somebody who had lived with a spinal cord injury for that same time would be 3 times more proficient in what's going on with their body than I ever could be. And so one of the best things that I've found is really listening to the participants that come in and asking them questions, seeing how they feel about what's going on, because that's where the real insight comes in. We can collect these data and, okay, look, this does this when you try and do that. But ultimately, we don't really know what it's going to do unless we talk to the person. So that's one of the big things. So I'll go over the AIM-1 design a little bit. I want to explain one concept, and I'll show you one little piece of data because I think it really emphasizes this point really well. Just a few results and then the future plans. So one of the things that I would hope to get out of this today is that you guys get excited about the bowel research that we're doing. And so either want to participate or talk to people that you know that might want to participate, but also just to kind of know that we are um, trying to go after one of these understudied conditions after SCI. I've had a lot of people that come through the study and they say, thank you for doing this research. I haven't seen anything else like this. And so I think that is uh, good for us, but it's also, I think, good for you in terms of we're trying to push the bounds of what we know about bowel function. We're trying to figure out ways that we can uh, make things a little bit easier for everybody. So ultimately, the information we're collecting is questionnaire data. So this is self-report from the participants, and we're going to compare that to the physical data that we get from the medical test, the anal rectal manometry, or ARM. And so why do we do both? I kind of talked about this a little bit, but people living with SCI, you are the experts. I'm not. And so this study, more than anything else, has shown me that is absolutely true. And so these questionnaire data really give meaning to the physical data we're collecting because we can look at, oh, A versus B or Asia A versus D and kind of see, oh, they have different patterns, but we don't actually know what that means to anyone unless we can talk to them about it. And so what physical data are we collecting? First, we want to see how people's bodies work when they come in the door. Um, and so that would be this baseline data point here. We'll do the test once, and this is how your body's functioning day to day. Then we will apply stimulation and we'll test during that stimulation. So we want to see how your body responds to that stimulation. So this is really the stim effect. Does the stimulation do anything to change what's already happened? Then we do it one more time. It's a total of 4 because we have 2 different types of stimulation, but we'll do it once again after another rest to see is there any lasting effect, right? So is the stimulation causing an immediate effect and then anything lasting? So I personally am hoping this lasting effect is pronounced because I would love it if people came in and then they didn't have to come in again. So if I could be so good at my job that nobody else had to come see me again, I would be a happy camper. So ultimately, this rehabilitation effect on the end at this retest is really important for seeing, can we make a change in the system that lasts for a little while afterwards? And then you don't have to stim every day too. So the questionnaire data, and this is really what I wanted to talk to you guys about. I will show you the questionnaire, and if you want, if you have a piece of paper or you want to follow along, kind of score yourself. So I'll show you the whole questionnaire and I'll explain it to you. And then if you want to get yourself a score, you can see how you fall along that data set and where you would place yourself. You don't have to tell me. I'm not allowed to collect data from you guys anyway. So it'll just be for kind of your own um, your own information. How do you scale according to this international data set? So this is a questionnaire that was developed by an international group uh, that are experts in SCI, and so the consequences after SCI. So this has been something that they've been working on and validating. So it seems to be pretty good, and so I kind of want to test it against you guys and see if you guys agree with me. So they give these ranges, and I don't want to leave those up too long, so you're not like, oh no, I'm getting too many points. So there are ranges, right? So this is the questionnaire. So did you have any dysfunction before your injury? Yes or no? There's no points for this one. So this could be, I used to have really bad constipation and now it's worse, right? The next one is surgical procedures on the GI tract. This is actually really important in terms of, can you respond to stimulation? But these are all pretty common. Appendectomy is fairly common. Cholecystectomy, this is a gallbladder removal. That's pretty common. Hemorrhoidectomy, if you've had constipation issues at any time in your life, before or after injury, this might be something that you would have. Colostomy, so that's where they will put a port in so that you don't actually defecate anymore. It will come out into a bag similar to like a urine collection bag. Ileostomy is the same thing. It's just higher in your small intestine. Appendicostomy, uh, that I don't actually know what that is. I haven't I haven't seen that before. So it looks like antegrade colonic enema. So this looks like a port where you can put in an enema rather than putting it in. So this might be in concert with some of these other ones to help flush everything out. Defecation method, there's your main. So if when you go, you always do this, and then if you need to, I'll do this too. That's where the main and supplementary come from. So your main method, typically people will say digital stimulation, which is third down here, and suppositories maybe as their secondary, or if you have a couple main ones, you just click a couple main ones. Now, nothing up here is scored. This is kind of just information about your situation. Once we get down here, these actually are scored. So the average time required for defecation, this is actually a big one. So typically after SCI, I'm sure you know, it can take a very long time to go to the bathroom to complete your bowel program. So this is really asking 0 to 30 minutes is about typical. So there's 0 points for that one. But if it's over 30 minutes, between 31 to 60, it's 3 points. More than an hour is 7 points. So not applicable would be for somebody who has like these ostomies. And then frequency of defecation. So if it's daily, no points. That's what it's supposed to be. 1 to 6 times per week. So this is like in every other day. And so that would be 1 point. Although if it's 1 time per week, that's not too great. And if it's less than once a week, there's 6 points for that one. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes just kind of see where you are in here. So there's 13 points on this one. There's 3 pages total. And so, and if you have any questions, please just speak up, please. So just let me know when you guys are ready to go. If you want to just do your score, just kind of put down a number for whichever ones that have this parenthesis after this. So another reason why I wanted to go over this is that I want to know if you guys think that this works well. Also, a little bit of a focus group, a little bit of just lived experience saying, I don't know. It says here I have severe, but I don't really have that many problems, or vice versa. Or it says my score says I only have very minor, but it seems like I'm dealing with it every day. So there are definitely some points here where we could have some input from the community that could help make this better. So did everybody get these?
Are we supposed to message the answers to you?
No, just write them down for yourself, Rhonda. That's okay.
Oh, gotcha.
I don't need to hear about it. This is just, interaction and fun and discussion if you want. Because I can't take your answers in terms of like
Good.
regulatory stuff, but
Good to know.
yeah, no worries. I'm super careful with that stuff. I don't want to deal with anybody's information that's not in my study and didn't sign a consent. So, you could say here, that's fine, but I'd rather not. So if everybody's good, I'm gonna go to the next page. So I'll say, speak up now or forever hold your peace. All right. So then here's the next page. So uneasiness, headache, or perspiration during defecation. So this is AD, right? So do you get AD during your bowel program? A no is 0, a yes is 2 points. So do you do stim or digital evacuation within the last 4 weeks? So daily is 6 points, once or more per week is 6 points. So basically, if you do it at all, there's 6 points here. And so a lot of the people that I've seen do use digital stimulation, so they almost always get this one. Because if they have a frequency of at least once a week, you're going to get this. Frequency of fecal incontinence, so daily is 13 points. That's a big one. And if you guys have dealt with fecal incontinence episodes, I'm sure you appreciate how highly that's scored. Right? If you're having it every day, that's not an okay situation. 1 to 6 times per week is 7 points. 1 to 4 times every month is 6 points. So, if you have it once a week, it's still 6 points, which can also be pretty difficult to manage. Flatus incontinence, this is like just passing gas without being able to stop it. 2 points for that one. And now this one isn't scored, but if you need to wear it says diaper here. I've wanted to change that to like absorbent pad. I've had some
Really?
participant. Well,
How
I've had some.
humiliating.
Exactly. I don't want to ask people like, you're a grown person. Diapers are for babies, right? So I've had some people say, I don't wear diapers. I wear an absorbent undergarment. I'm like, that's fair. But approved questionnaires are approved questionnaires. So I'm not going to change anything. So do you use oral laxatives? So drops or liquids or tablets? I think it's either or here. If you don't know if it's bulking or irritant, it's not a big deal. Bulking or osmotic are things like Miralax, fiber, things like that. And so the irritant ones are like Senecot and things like that. Did you use any constipating agents against fecal incontinence, like amotidine or Pepto-Bismol or anything in the last 4 weeks? So 4 points for that. Is this difficult to see? I see you guys like very close to the screen. Do you want me to make it bigger?
Yeah, I got my. Oh, I don't have glasses. I'm using cheaters. They're not strong enough.
It is a
Okay.
little small to read.
Wait, that's okay, my bad. Let me see if I can make it bigger. Why don't we just do this? Whoa, hang on.
Ooh.
All right, let me see here. I got my windows all over the place. 1 second. Here we go.
I hope I didn't do that.
Is that better?
No.
No, now it's teeny, and Jeannie Mailer's name's up big, or else I hit something wrong.
Oh no.
I think it's better. Rhonda, did you hit something?
I Must
about
have
that?
hit something. I've got a little teeny screen at the top. Then in a great big black square it says Jeannie Mailer.
That's
Oh yeah, you switched the share screen with the people screen.
Yeah.
Remove pin. I can remove pin. Or remove pin. Ah! Apparently I put a pin down there. It's all better. I see Meg real big, but the study screen is little teeny on the top. Is it big for you, Meg? Oh man.
Yes,
what
it is.
All right, I just gotta. Maybe I selected you. Go ahead, you guys. Don't wait on me. I'm gonna text my
So,
son.
how many people are good on
Good.
this screen?
I'm good. I can see it.
Okay,
Right.
cool. Is everybody done with their data collection?
I got a number.
Okay.
I can see it too,
Okay, perfect.
but I can't scroll on it now.
That's fair. You need me to go back up?
Yeah, I want
Okay, so we got AD at the first one. If it's yes, 2 points. If you do dig stim or evacuation, it's 6 points.
Oh wow, what happened?
Is that my fault?
No, I don't think so. It's probably something I did. That's all right. Go ahead.
Okay. All right, are we good on page 2? There's only a few more on the second one. And then I'll have to figure out a better way to do this next time. All right, so we'll go to the last page here. Ah, crap.
What is it?
There we go.
What are you trying to do?
So it's just perianal
I
problems.
just now said I need to mute it.
If you have any of these issues, it's 3 for a yes, and then abdominal pain or discomfort. So this one isn't really scored, but if you add up all your scores, this is the severity range, we call it. So 0 to 6 is very minor. So um, you may have issues, but it tends to be within the realm of manageable. Minor is a little bit more severe. Moderate is a little bit more severe. And there's, I think, a total of over 40 points. And you only need 14 to get into severe disruption. And so that's where we're looking for people that have severe disruption for AIM-2. So there are a couple reasons for this. The big reason is that we want to target people that are going to benefit the most. Did share. Where did my screen go? Okay. So how did you do? People.
I failed that test.
Got a high score?
Yeah.
So that's okay. This is really all in an effort to kind of get to know your body better, right? So there are things that this may tell you, and to kind of look at, how difficult those problems are for you to manage. There's also a quality of life questionnaire where we'll go through and we ask more of the um, kind of anxiety sort of things. My bowel function has bothered me in the last 4 weeks, and it'll be 0 to 5. Or I worry about having an accident, and that'll be 0 to 5 in the last 4 weeks. And so you kind of get into the human aspect of it. Even this is a little bit kind of medical, right? Do you have these problems or don't you? But the other one is where we really get into, what effect is this having on you, right? Because it's not just the problems that you're having, it's also what effect does that problem have on your daily life. And so that's the other part that we want to get into, to really, figure out how the medical relates to the person and how those two things work together in your daily life. So you don't need to tell me your scores, but if it's over 14, that would be characterized as severe on this questionnaire. And so what do you guys think about that questionnaire and kind of what we're doing, putting those two things together? I'd love to see if you guys have anything to add to the questionnaire or if this is just kind of missing the mark for you.
I would like to see numbers next to each individual thing so that while you were going over it, it would be then easier to find on the screen. Sorry.
Oh, which one? Up over
All
here,
of
like
them, just
question number?
numbers to the left. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they don't have that on the questionnaire. I can definitely add that.
How can we get
Um,
back to the first page so we can see how we
Here you go.
score?
So the first page,
Yeah.
so the score is on the last page, but if you want the first page questions, they should be up.
Okay.
You need me to
Yeah.
make them.
I want to look at them.
Okay, no worries.
Okay. Okay.
So I think it's worthwhile to say at this point, um, I think that there's kind of an understanding that with increasing severity, so of injury, so Asia severity, you get more problems, right? So with that logic, you would expect someone with an Asia A lesion to have severe disruption, whereas somebody with maybe an Asia D wouldn't have as much disruption. That's not actually how it works in what we found. So in our data set, I actually went and I looked at the data and I sorted it by severity just to look and see, okay, down in the severe group, is it all A's and B's? And it turns out it's not. There's a fair representation of Asia C and Asia D injuries in that severe data set. So this is not really related to severity of injury. So similar to um, bladder function, that regardless of what kind of injury you have, you can have bowel and bladder disruption, even if it's a less severe injury. We've had people come in that were ambulatory, so they were able to walk, and they still had pretty bad bowel and bladder disruption. Did you have a question, Rhonda?
Yes. What do you mean by the Asia score?
So there's an international spinal cord injury screening where you go through and they'll test with the pinprick and the soft touch, the different dermatomes on your body and see
Oh, yeah.
where you have normal sensation. So that's the American, I'm terrible with acronyms.
Is
So
this
Asia,
thing? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, it's the INSPE. So typically when you're injured, that's what they'll do. They'll test your whole body with the pinprick and the light touch and see where your sensation stops or becomes different. So if you have some spared sensation, but it's like, yeah, I can feel it, but it doesn't feel the same anymore, they count that as well. So that's how they get your level of injury too.
Yeah.
So it's yeah. So some people call it the INSCI because that's the abbreviation for that huge long acronym I can never remember. Other people will call it the Asia scale because it came from that group. So
Is
are we good
this
on these?
is
Yeah,
this
go ahead.
questionnaire 3 pages or 2?
It's 3 pages. This is the middle
Okay.
page.
Okay.
This is kind of the meat of it too, right? There's 31 points on this one, maximum that you can get. So this is kind of the meat of the scale in terms of, I think, where people are going to pick up their points as well, right? So if you have a higher level of injury, you're more likely to have AD. So there are your 2 points there. Remember, it only has to be 6 points to get out of that very minor category. And if you do digital stimulation, that's 8 points. And so you're kind of just, it feels like a weird game show to be picking up these different points. But ultimately, this is where I think a lot of the problems that people have come in as well. So there's the time it takes to defecate the number of times on the previous page. But this is really where you get into the AD and do
Yeah,
you need
but
to
you're
stim or
saying
not?
You're saying
Yeah, go
if you do it, the stimulation
Mhm.
every day or 5 times
Mhm.
a week or something, you get
Mhm.
6 points.
Yep.
So I'm already over that. So what,
Mhm.
I wasn't in on the last one. What are they trying to do here as far as this research? What are they looking to do?
Sure. So what we're trying to do is there's something called genital nerve stimulation. So it's non-invasive, and you put the electrodes on the genitalia. And so when you stimulate there with just a regular TENS unit, what you get is changes in bladder and bowel function because it gets into the spinal cord and then it changes how the spinal cord interacts with those organs. So what we're trying to see is, can this work in bowel function? Because we know that it works in bladder function. And it looks like it is changing some things um, in bowel function as well. And I'll get to some results in a little bit, but this is ultimately when you want to figure out if something changes, say, bowel function, you have to figure out where it was at the start. And so we'll do this questionnaire to figure out, okay, where are you starting? What problems are you having at first? Then we apply the stimulation and we see, did that change at all? So in this first part, we're doing it with the medical test, the anal rectal manometry, but in the second part, we'll do it with the questionnaires as well to see, okay, is the stimulation changing any of these things? Do you have to use digital stimulation less? We actually did have somebody, and I don't want to promise any results or anything. Um, so we had somebody come through AIM-1 and we tested and they had severe bowel disruption. And then we called them to see if they would come in to do AIM-2 because we were trying to target people with severe disruption to make sure that they could have uh, some benefit and we could see a benefit that they were having. And he's not severe anymore. I don't know what changed. I'm hoping it was what we did. So maybe coming in to see us changed something in how his body worked with the stimulation plus the testing. He doesn't do ditch stim anymore and he doesn't have accidents anymore.
Wow.
I don't want to promise anybody anything. It could have been a him thing, but there are some really interesting things in trying to recruit for AIM-2 because we wanted to target those with that severe disruption. Um, we're finding a lot of people are testing out of that severity case now. And so we're trying to figure that out at this point. We're like, okay, so do the questionnaire again, and if anything's different from the first time, why? Did you do anything differently? Did you change your diet? Did you change how much you're, um, eating? Did you change how much you're drinking? Is there anything else that could explain this? Um, because, like I said, if you come in and see us and we test you and it gets better, I'd be happy with that. It'd be a
Well,
really short research program, but I'd be happy with it. Go ahead, Gene.
how do you find out, um, where is this done at, first of all? And how do you find out if you can be a participant?
So if you want to be a participant in the study, I can give you the information for our coordinator. Megan Hammond is actually on the study as well. So we can get you in touch if you want to email her or email me. We can get you in touch with Unvi, our coordinator, and we can get you
Envy.
set up. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's fairly easy. The eligibility criteria are T12 injury or above.
Okay.
Any severity of injury, A, B, C, or D. Be able to provide, consent and basically not have any medical conditions or implanted stimulation devices like a defibrillator
Right.
or something like that. So they're fairly open. If you want to send Megan or myself an email, I'd be happy to put you in touch. Again, I don't promise results. We're not at the results part yet.
Right. I
What we can
understand.
say is, yeah, you come in, we spend the day together, chit chat about whatever while we do these tests. And then one of the cool things is I actually put the screen so you can see the data as we go. So you're watching it while I'm watching it. We can kind of
Yeah.
talk about what's happening. It's
Well,
kind of a cool like biofeedback. Yeah.
I'm just really curious as to learning more anyways, because I am just going by what I was taught when I was in rehab, and that's all I know about it. I don't know
Hmm.
anything else. I would like to
Okay.
try something else or do, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So
Sure.
that's fine.
Yeah, and all of this would be done after a consenting process, and so Unvi is really good at explaining what we're doing and exactly what's going to happen while you're there, so that there are no surprises. But this is a medical test, so we will go over that as well if you want to come in. Are there any other questions? I'm going to get real quick to the results. All right. So there's one thing I need to talk to you about a little bit before, and that is compliance. So in the bowel and the bladder, there's what's called compliance, and it's basically it relaxes. So as the bladder fills, it's supposed to relax to accommodate the volume. Then when it gets too much, then you have the urge to go and you void. So with typical compliance, you can see it's kind of like this hamper where it's got a structure to it. It holds a certain amount, but if you need to, you can jam some extra stuff in there and the sides will kind of relax to accommodate it, right? I had one of these as a graduate student and it was completely smashed out of shape by the time I was done. The negative side of that is an overly compliant, in this case, rectum. So this is where it's kind of just relaxed all the time. So what this leads to is accumulations of a large amount of material that can then become very hard. And so you get like this big impacted mass. And so this is not an ideal situation where it's overly compliant because you kind of lose that rigidity in the system. And so it's kind of like when a balloon gets really stretched out. The flip side of that is reduced compliance, where you have these very stiff walls. And so it can't accommodate any more volume than its structure dictates. And so any extra, and now it's poking out the top. So ideally with the rectum, these are not closed. And this would be the stuff that we want to either stay inside or get in the toilet. And so ultimately, we don't want to be overly compliant because that can lead to constipation and impaction issues. We don't want to have reduced compliance because that could lead to fecal incontinence and a high rate of going to the bathroom. So really, both of these situations, high and low, are not ideal for the system. Is that clear to everybody? The whole compliance thing. I know it's a fancy word for basically does it relax? Okay. So I preface that because this is the one data slide I want to show you. And I think this really shows one of the main findings that we've had so far is that it looks like people with an A and B injury, A or B injury, have reduced compliance because the pressure here is higher. So this is the pressure in the rectum. And what we do is we inflate a balloon with saline. And so in the uninjured individual, you see the pressure goes up kind of slowly. It's not linear because what it's doing is it's relaxing as the pressure goes up. Now, in people with an A or a B injury in our study, they had a higher pressure to begin with, and then that kept going up as well. So it wasn't relaxing the way that it should. People with a C or D injury in our study tended to have a overly compliant. And so that might account for why somebody with a C or a D injury could have severe bowel disruption on the questionnaire because they are having problems, just different ones, right? So this person over here, you would expect to have issues with fecal incontinence as well as constipation, which is problematic. You'd think it would be one or the other, and yet a lot of people will have both because it'll kind of hang on to it until it can't anymore, and then you'll have an accident. But there's still a mass behind there. So this tells us a little bit, but one's high, one's low. Okay, what does that actually mean? And this is where that questionnaire data gets really cool. And from a scientific point of view, this is insight I wouldn't have had if I just had the medical test alone. And so if you look here down at the bottom, sorry if this is small, you have the neurogenic bowel score. So this is that questionnaire score. So someone that has a very minor score, so 0 to 6, has a very compliant rectum here. See, it's below the black line, which is the uninjured range. I mean, here it's almost 0 at the very bottom. And so here, this is a very compliant system. And they tend to have fewer difficulties as reported by the questionnaire. But the cool thing well, not cool. The thing that is interesting from a scientific point of view is that as that severity score goes up, so now we're minor, and now look, the rectal tension has gone up as well. So this is almost at the uninjured range. And then if we go up one more time, these people have a rectal tension that is above the uninjured range. And so it looks like the severity in the neurogenic bowel questionnaire can almost predict the tension in the rectal system. And so that's actually a surprising thing in terms of data analysis. You don't really see things this clearly normally. There's a lot more mud in the water often. And so what I'm seeing here is that, yeah, okay, there's a big difference between A, B, and C, D. But the really interesting difference is down here in what they're telling us. The issues that they're saying that they have maps very nicely onto this rectal compliance curve. And so it looks like if you have higher severity score, you're more likely to have a higher rectal tension, which could lead to some of the issues that you have. Are there any questions on this? I want to take a minute for everybody to kind of take it in, think about it, and ask whatever questions they have about it. Because this is, like I said, when you're doing data analysis, very rarely do things jump out like this. And so this was one of those times where it really drove home that the importance of that questionnaire data and asking people, what are you experiencing? And then looking back at your data again and saying, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah.
How many participants were part of this data set? I mean, was it
say
1,000?
about 28. No,
Okay.
so we've tested about 34 people so far. 3 people didn't have their data included. Yeah, so 31, I believe, 31 people in this data set. And so that's going to be kind of separated. I think there are more people in the severity group, the severe group, than there are in other ones. But it's definitely, so this is the first time anybody's looked at this. So we're not going to have one of those big clinical trials where they have like hundreds of people yet. But we're hoping to get there.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. So are there any other questions on this data? And that's really all the data I want to show, except a couple cool things that we found.
I had a question.
Yeah.
Was this data collected from people answering a questionnaire or things that happened during an experiment?
Yes. So they answered the questionnaire, and then we went in and we did the medical test. So the medical test is what gave us the data in this curve, and then we organized it based on the questionnaire data.
Huh.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like organizing it with Asia A, B, or Asia C, D. It's the same. It's just we used their answers instead. And I actually, in these graphs at the bottom, I ignored what injury severity they had. I ignored what level they had. It has nothing to do with it because these are organized solely on the answers that came back in the questionnaire. And look how clear that pattern is. Right? As you have increasing severity of disruption on the questionnaire, you have increasing rectal tone. And so that's something that can be pretty powerful too.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is. And we couldn't have done it without the people that were giving us those answers. And that's why really the take home of this, I want to say, is that the heroes of this are not the people doing the study. They're the people participating in the study. And I try and say that to every person that comes through the door, because this is my first study with human participants. I'm used to rats, and they're not nearly as much fun to talk to.
Oh, thanks for
No,
sharing
no,
that.
you guys are the best. I would take human stuff over animal research any day now.
It's a I'm glad I'm better than a rat. That's good.
No, well,
I was in that
that's
study.
not how I meant it.
Did I do the same? Did I get knocked out of the study because of something that happened, or am I one of these numbers too?
I don't know, actually. I can double check. If you want to reach out to me afterwards, I can let you know. I don't know offhand, is what I'm telling you.
Gotcha.
When I look at the data, I only use a de-identified data set. So I only see um, participant numbers. And that's for a very important reason that I don't want any PHI anywhere but on metro systems. So I don't deal with it at all. But I can double check. If you want to reach out, I'll put my email up at the end. You can reach out to me and I'll let you know.
Yep.
I don't think you were taken.
Not that big of a
Okay.
deal.
Yeah. Hey, I was in an fMRI study once, and I want to know if my data's in that paper. No, I get you. So there are some other kind of cool results that we were not expecting. So this is actually a trace from our rig. So this is with the catheter inserted into a person. We're recording the top here is rectal pressure. So you can see it's much lower than sphincter pressure. And all four of these are sphincter pressure. So kind of pay attention to the pink one at the bottom. Now there's some cool reflexes where when there's a distension in the rectum, so the increased pressure here, the anal sphincter will relax. This is called the rare reflex. This is important for defecation, right? So typically when somebody will bear down, what they're doing is increasing this pressure here, and that causes everything to loosen up so that things can come out. The cool thing about this is that this person wasn't doing that. This was just naturally happening. So this is a spasm in his rectum. So similar to spasms that can happen in your bladder that lead to incontinence, it can happen in the rectum as well. And so we actually picked one up on our data. This was one of the things we hypothesized. Well, we know this happens, so that could be leading to accidents. And this is really with the meaning added is because I was talking to this person and I was showing him, oh, look, this is what's happening. And he said, oh man, that feeling, every time I have it, I go to the bathroom. And sometimes, most of the time, nothing comes out. So I go to the bathroom because I think I'm going to have an accident because that's what this feels like. And then nothing happens. He has some gas. He goes back to his desk. This was happening every 30 seconds. So if you imagine how often that person had to go to the bathroom and back to his desk when nothing happened, this was an all day thing for that person. And so the really cool thing was as we were at rest, he'd say, oh, watch your screen. It's going to happen again because he could feel it before we could pick it up. And so there was this really cool interaction and biofeedback to it where he could tell what was going to happen before it happened because of how it felt. And so it was this really neat opportunity where he kind of learned something about his body as well, right? Okay, if it feels like this, maybe I don't have to go every time. And so he kind of got a little bit of his day back just by being in the study and learning, okay, my body does this sometimes. Not always an emergency, not always going to have an accident. So maybe I don't have to go every time. And so this was something that we didn't see for about 14 or 15 people until this person came in. So it's not as common as we thought it was. Also, if you look here, this line at the top, it's about 79. So typical continence range for an uninjured person starts around 38. So this is sufficient for continence, right? This is enough pressure to withhold a bowel movement naturally unless this happens. And so that's kind of the situation where you can have constipation and fecal incontinence at the same time, right? You have a sphincter that's holding on to a large amount of material, and then you go, whoop, I got a spasm, and then some comes out. And so it's kind of this interaction um, between those different tissues and how you can get that paradoxical, like, why am I constipated and having accidents? That doesn't make sense. Um, so the other one, and this was interesting. So if you look over here, see how this is mostly a steady state line? It's got some wave to it, but it's, it hangs out around 79, 80. This was an individual we tested a few weeks ago. This was at rest. So this was a pattern that we actually, I showed this to Dr. Fass, and he said, in 30 years, I've never seen this. He's been a GI specialist for 30 years. He's never seen this pattern of activity. And so this person, his internal sphincter is basically spasming every 30 seconds with these ultra slow waves from 60. So this would be enough to maintain continence up to 240. This is an insane pressure. That's like 3 times higher than this one. And this was happening whether he tried to push, whether he tried to squeeze. When we were doing the rare response, we couldn't even get this because of all this activity. Now, this person, it took 4 to 5 hours to do his bowel program every day. And I looked at the screen after he told me that because I was shocked because we do the questionnaire first. I'm like, no way, that can't be right. And then I saw this. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense now. Essentially, what his body's doing is creating an outlet obstruction for himself. And so this is something I took to Dr. Fast because I'm like, this is probably a medical thing. And so we're drafting a letter to kind of send to him and say, hey, these are the results we had. You might want to show this to your doctor. There are a few other things that you can do, perhaps to help with this. Because again, 4 to 5 hours a day of autonomic dysreflexia isn't good for your health either. So, seeing these alone without any sort of questionnaire or being able to talk to the person would be odd. But with that, you get a whole new understanding of what this actually means for that person. And so I think that's just really cool. So what do you guys think about what I've talked about so far? Is it making sense? Do you think this kind of fits with anything that you've experienced?
It
Okay.
seems to be pretty just like, yeah, it fits with my experience.
Okay. So it would be interesting, knowing what you know now, would you predict your rectal pressure is high or low?
No,
So that's fair. So in terms of conclusions from AIM-1, so the severe scores tend to be related to that rectal pressure. And we had some really unexpected results, changes in reflex and changes in sensation. So we do other parts in the test, and we've started to see these other effects that we're not supposed to really be seeing based on what the stimulation is supposed to do. So it looks like we're kind of activating the spinal cord to wake it up to see
yes,
changes in things.
I would be low. And yeah, when I did the study, there was a
Hmm.
big difference in it helped. At first,
Okay.
I lost it a few times in my brief, but then after a
Mm.
week, everything settled out and got much better. I had more sensitivity and control than I had before. Thank you very much.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm glad it worked out for you. I can't take credit. We're still learning. But that's great. And it's really nice to hear back from people that have been in the study, to hear that things have changed for them. It makes AIM-2 a little bit more difficult for us, but I'm happy that people are having positive results, and it's without the stimulation, right? So this is going on long afterwards, which is fantastic. So just real quick, I want to go through kind of the nuts and bolts of AIM-2. It's essentially the same, but instead of only 30 minutes of stimulation during the testing, we want people to stimulate for 6 to 8 hours during the day, if they're able to. Now, the other part is it's a feasibility thing. Can you do that? Because the idea was that if the stimulation causes continence, you'd want to have it on during the day, right? So this is what we are starting with, is kind of a long period of stimulation to see if that changes how the body's working. Oh, there's some chat questions here. Oh, there you go. Thank you, Becky. And so really this is a feasibility. So does it work in your daily life? Did you have any issues? Were you able to stimulate for all the days that we asked you to? And did you notice any changes? And so this is really the big test of whether this can lead to functional changes, because 30 minutes doesn't really do much most of the time. So this is similar to before. If you think about the previous one, we do a baseline, a stim test, and a retest, right? Except now there's 4 weeks and 2 weeks in between instead of like 15 minutes. So it's
Are you
taking
talking
a
about?
first.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Are you talking about stimming for 4 hours? Is there like some
No.
electrical thing you've got hooked up that's doing that?
So it'll be the same setup as we had before, is like a handheld TENS unit and just
Yeah.
electrodes down
Okay.
to the stimulation site. So
Oh,
that
that's
could
good.
be,
He knows. Okay.
you put it on as you're getting dressed, and then you kind of put it in either, a pouch in your chair or a fanny pack or however you want to carry it. And then just stim as you go about your day and kind of fill out the bowel diary. And we'll do questionnaires when we see you at these 3 data collection visits. But other than that, it'll be 4 weeks of stimming, 6 hours per day.
Do you think it could be 4 weeks of constant going to the bathroom?
I hope not. So one of the things that we were worried about was fatigue, right? What if it fatigues the muscles and so you have more accidents? And so what we did is we are doing 1 week at threshold stimulation. So it's a lower intensity of stimulation. And then the next week you go up, and the next week you go up. So it's 2 weeks at the stimulation intensity we had during testing before. So we walk you up a little bit, so it's not going to just hit your system with a sledgehammer. So this is the idea for AIM-2. Now this actually requires a lot more input from the participants, and it's a much longer commitment. So 4 weeks of stimulation, and then 2 weeks of no stim. This is the washout, and then 3 of the ARM data collection days. So it's fairly intensive. There's compensation for it, but what this will really tell us is, does it work? And if it does work, and there are issues that we can figure out in how people needed to use it, then we can move on to a larger clinical trial. Or let's say, 6 hours a day was too much. We can adjust how much stimulation people are giving themselves to see if we can get a nice balance for how much stim versus how much benefit you get.
Rob?
So, yeah, go ahead.
Hope this isn't a dumb question, but what is
No dumb questions.
what is the aim here? I'm not grasping it. What is
Oh,
this?
I'm
How
sorry.
is this supposed to improve a person by doing this 4 hours a day? What does it show?
Well, so sure. So let me show you with an example real quick. So if we go here, so on these bottom graphs, these different lines are baseline, sham, test, and rebaseline. So these are the different stimulation conditions. But if you look, they're not that different, right? So it doesn't look like the stim is really doing anything in one visit. So what we want to
This is
see,
having that electrical thing on you,
yep.
not sticking your
So
finger up your ear.
correct. This is the electrical stimulation.
Okay.
So the genital nerve stimulation doesn't really look to be changing these lines very much. So we thought maybe that's because they're not getting enough stimulation within that one visit. And so if you increase the amount of stimulation, you might start to see differences with stimulation. And so that's the idea. Additionally, this is a home test. So we want you to do this at home. And if the stimulation was helping you stay continent, you kind of want it on during the day, right?
Oh, that's what it's for.
Right. So this
I
is, can you stimulate during the day to help maintain continence?
I
And
have continence, so I don't think
mhm.
I could be. I don't have a problem, and I can wait until it's time to go. Put in the bullet and bing bang bong within the next hour. My body waits for me. I don't.
Okay. Yeah,
Oh,
and that's fine. I'm
I'm
glad that you have
blessed.
something that works. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And talking to a lot of people that I have with spinal cord injury, like, once you find something that works for you, you tend to stick with it. And that's great. I don't want to get in the way of that. But if you are finding that your bowel program isn't working for you, this might be something that you could try. I can't say we're going to treat anything. I can't promise any results, but um, this could be something that you could do that is different than kind of standard of care. Does that make sense?
Hey, I had a question. In therapy,
Sure.
I got ordered one of those bedside toilets, trying to learn how to
Mhm.
go on that instead of laying on my side in the bed.
Mhm.
And the stim process is hard to reach. I could buy some tool for $125 that I highly doubt
Yeah.
is going to work. I don't know. But if you
Mhm.
could use this de-stim thing, would that help me go then when I sat on the toilet?
I'm not sure. So, uh,
Oh,
we haven't had anybody try yet, so I can't tell you. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to tell you something that I'm not sure of. And in terms of the data that we have, we don't know that that'll be the case. Now, what does tend to happen is the sphincter does fatigue over the course of stimulation. So by the time you get to the end of the day, when you turn it off, you might have a fair amount of fatigue in the system. Um, so perhaps it would help you go like when you turn it off. That was one thing we were thinking of, like, okay, perhaps when you turn it off, like make sure you're somewhere
where you go?
appropriate for them, right? Either, on the toilet, on, one of those seats, or if you're ready for it, especially in the beginning, because we don't know how your body's going to react to it. But so
Could
far,
almost
what we're trying to do is one person. And so the first person in name two is going to get all of my attention. So it'll be like, just call me up, because there might be some material issues like, oh, I need more electrodes, or my cable broke, or I can't get this thing to turn on, whatever the case may be. We're going to be there for that. And so this will be kind of figuring it out, right? What if somebody says, oh man, the first 3 days I couldn't get off the toilet. Okay, maybe that's not the right way to stimulate. So there's a lot of things that we're trying to work out in this aim, and that's why we're trying to get people enrolled so that we can figure this stuff out. Because it still may take for each person their own personalized settings. You know how variable injury stuff is, and so that might also be the case in bowel function as well. So we're trying to get people in, we're trying to get this going so that we can figure all that out, and that's the goal.
Good.
But it never happens all at once, unfortunately.
Hmm.
And so same data as last time. We just added some bowel diaries, and then you tell us if it works or not. And this would be giving me a call and saying, "Hey, I'm having accidents every day. What did you do to me?" And that's fine. Or my stimulator broke, or these wires, I need something different. They're getting caught in my clothes, or anything. And so this will be a very hands-on aim, because we're trying to figure out all of those different details to see if we could scale this up to a larger study so that more people could take part. And then I want to thank everybody that's been in the study, and then the amazing team that we have. We've had a bunch of people that have moved on. Ashley moved on. Um, when Lainey's out, she just had her second baby. But she's coming back in April. So we're going to be happy to have her back. If there's any more questions, I don't want to keep you too much over time. Sorry, I tend to talk a lot. But I will be here if you guys have more questions. I'm happy to stay. Um, I'm just excited that we're starting to get stuff that might be helpful.
Yeah, that's awesome. No one else talking because
Any questions for Dr. Hoey?
Can be anything. I was hoping the Bills went to the Super Bowl.
I am You know, I'm without having problems other than maybe trying to go on the bedside toilet. Would I be a participant in this, or am I out of it?
I don't know. You would have to talk to Unvi and kind of go through again and just do the screening again with the questionnaire. Is that something you'd be interested in? Because it's kind of a big commitment. I'm not trying to dissuade you. I just want you to know what you're in for. It would be the 4 weeks of stimulation. So the second aim is it's pretty intense. So if you're up for it, let us know. Or we are still recruiting for aim one as well. So if you just want to come in for the day, that's fine also. We can do the day or the long one. So any interest, just let Megan know or let me know, and we'll get you in touch with our coordinators and get you in.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, especially on aim one, which is the first part of the study, there is a replay on YouTube from last year's presentation and the year before, actually. So that could answer a lot of questions. I can send the links out as well. But if you have any questions, if you're wondering, if you are eligible, anything like that, feel free to get a hold of me. I will pass along your information to Unvi, which knows the study a lot better than me. She'll be able to answer all of your questions, see if you do qualify, and if you do, then schedule a time to come in and see us. All right. If there are any other questions, feel free to ask, but Dr. Hoey, thank you for updating us, talking about AIM 2, giving us all of that information. We look forward to hearing more about it in the future.
I hope to actually have some results and tell you actual things next time.
That would be
Um,
great.
but yeah, if you wouldn't mind sharing my email as well, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd be happy to answer any questions or put you in touch with our coordinator.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everybody.